Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Aaron with HEX Life and Style. So, last week we didn't put out a podcast. We took a step back and we pushed pause. We thought it was important to sit back and listen and support and spread as much love and help support the Black Lives Matter movement as much as we possibly could. So now we're back at it this week, and I'm extremely excited. This was my very first live video podcast that I've done, and it couldn't have come at a better time. I reached out to my friend Philip. Most of you may know him as KY Ambassador on Instagram, but Philip agreed to do the podcast with me, and I was very excited about that. And then he brought along his friends and his brothers, Albert and Arsene, and it's just amazing the conversation that was had. It was a great conversation. We talked about the Black Lives Matters movement. We talked about the black culture. We talked about fashion and style and influences from that standpoint. We talked about spirituality and love, and it was an amazing podcast. It's a little long. It's 2 hours long, so you might want to break it up as you listen to it. But I hope you all enjoyed as much as I enjoyed doing it. I made some great friends today, and I look forward to continuing to build on that relationship moving forward. So this podcast really needs no introduction, even though I'm giving one. So grab your drinks, sit back, and enjoy the podcast that needs no introduction. I hope you enjoy it.
Show me the way.
Okay, we're recording. Okay, guys, let's get rolling. Thank you so much. I want to introduce my guests. I got Arsene, Albert, and Philip.
Yes, sir.
Thank you guys so much for doing this. I appreciate it. So we kind of got this started. I reached out to Philip. I've known Philip for a little while, and just followed him on through Instagram, his style, his fashion, his spirituality, just kind of some of the things that he really brings to the table, and I love what he does. So we got the idea to do the podcast and through Philip, and I appreciate that. But we want to talk about a few things. But before we get going with, who knows where this will go. So,
Right.
But I want to start by you guys just kind of telling your story, how you made it, how you came to Lexington, Kentucky, how you guys ended up here, how you grew up, if you grew up here. Just kind of tell your story. So we'll go from right to left.
Man, first of all, thank you for that introduction, man. It means a lot, man. Not often, you get a recognition like that, especially just locally. So it means a lot that knowing that people actually recognizing what we're doing, and it's a great feeling. But I'm gonna try to keep it short as far as the introduction with me. My name is Philip, of course, born in Democratic Republic of Congo. I was a refugee here. I arrived in Lexington in 2005. Went to Henry Clay High School. Played soccer there. These are all my brothers. They've been my brothers since day one. We all grew up in the same neighborhood, same upbringing, that kind of stuff, same mentality, which kind of like also helps me to keep going in life, and it's great to have this group of support around me. But after high school, although we all kind of like went our own, part ways in college and stuff like that, I ended up at University of Evansville at first, and then I transferred back to University of Kentucky, and I was able to graduate there with a degree in sociology. And now I work at a community development program. It's called Common Good. We are a mentoring program that serves kids from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. And I serve there as a youth program director. And as far as fashion, I've always, fashion to me is kind of like self-care. So it just comes natural to me. I don't even know the way to explain it because the way I was brought up, going to school, dress up in uniform every single day. So I had to wear a button up and a shirt, and my shoe had to be polished. Teacher were coming around to check my nails. I didn't even realize that they were teaching me self-care at the early age, but that's something that now, as an older person, I'm able to look back and be like, wow, that was actually discipline that I was being taught at the young age. So that's how I got introduced to fashion. And till this day, that's the way I carry on, even today, I was checking on my pants, make sure it's well in iron and stuff like that. But those are just the discipline that I was taught at the early age. You see what I'm saying? And that's how I was introduced to fashion. As far as my style, I'm a vintage lover. I love old pieces just because I'm a huge fan of history. For some reason, it just connects with my world and the way I perceive the world. I always tell myself, like, one of my main mission is to bring vintage pieces back to life, right? And because to me, I adore those pieces, and like I said, it's just a reflection of my personality, and that's the way I see it, man. It's all based on instinct. I didn't go to fashion school or any kind of things like that, but I played soccer, so I played soccer my whole life. So a lot of my fashion and style, they came from football, as far as like the instincts, right? In the game of football, it's a very instinctive game. Like you have to know what to do with the ball before the ball gets to you. And as soon as that ball gets to your feet, you have to make quick decision. And that's sometimes I go with my style, man, just based on what I'm feeling. It's like my instinct. Oh, the weather today. Oh, great. That's the way I'm gonna go. So yeah, that's
No,
pretty much all about me, brother.
And I love that because I mean that's one of the reasons I'm in. I do kind of what I do is, I love from a vintage standpoint. I love getting the clothing back out there and people to enjoy it and style it the way that they want. And I think that's the coolest thing. And I need you to talk to my son, by the way, because I've been telling him over and over and over that it's not, it's about feeling good. It's about dressing nice and having that, having people look at you from that standpoint, as well. And he says, well, I want to wear this. I want to wear that. And I told him, I said, it's about self-care. It's about taking care of yourself. Yeah. So I finally got him taking at least a shower a day.
Nice.
Nice. But so Albert, what about you, man?
Oh man, I love it. I just love listening. Like this. Well, I'm Albert, of course, and I was born in the capital, just like Philip. Came as a refugee as well, and this is in '06. Philip came before me, and then I followed up right after these guys as well. And it was by Tucker, Harry Clay as well, and then went to school because I wanted to be going to the medical field, and become a doctor. And I just realized that everything was just so forceful, And so my senior high school, we lost the honor, Peter Jones. So that kind of like changed my whole perspective on life. And then I wanted to do exactly what I love to do. And then something that kind of got us all together was fashion. Fashion is really big in our country. But I wanted something more than just dressing. I wanted to build an entity that has a culture, a mission statement, and it's not just behind looking better. It's how people. I imagine how people should be treated when they're working for you. I had imagined how instead of like holding people down, the industry should be able to in fact encourage young minorities, people of color, how to dress better. So I got into kind of like a high-end brand. I didn't want to just start something, and I had nothing, man, and I just started traveling, and so everything's history. Just maybe I'm finding everything out.
Yeah.
That's me. Yes, sir.
So well, I want to touch on that a little bit more because you said something about you traveled clearly and kind of got input from probably all kinds of different areas and people and.
I mean, I think as far as like my industry and what I present, like as far as my product, I went back to the core, like, and I went back to Italy, the birthplace of the biggest fashion. So, and I got mentored a lot by a lot of older guys there, and and there was the point where I went to like 5 countries in 1 week, right? And talking to manufacturers, mills in London, Leeds, London, Spain, talking about Spanish leathers, like my shoes are handmade in Italy. In Spain, I'm sorry, and all my clothes are Italian or like or Hong Kong, right? So we pick up Italian fabrics, send them to Hong Kong, and we put them all together, and then people picked up the product here. So I didn't want the idea of like look at the industries, it's inventory, it's labor, and it's also rate as far as all those overheads. I wanted every individual to come into my place, feel like they belong here. They can have whatever drink they wanted to have, and then they can make whatever they can imagine was possible, but also make it affordable, right? It's okay to look good. You don't have to break the bank, but it's very important because us as people, God judges the spirit, but we judge the way you look.
Yeah. I love that. Say that again. Say it loud because I want to make sure this is picking up everything you guys are saying.
Yes.
So talk loud for sure.
Yes.
But
I mean,
say that again.
Again, God judges your spirit, and then we as human beings, we always gonna be judging your appearance, no matter what. So first presentation is always the key for me.
So I'm killing you guys with the holes in the pants.
Nah, man, it's all good. Like
In
that.
the-
that's a really good story.
In the 70s polo.
Yeah. By the way,
Trending.
by the way, that quote is from the Book of Samuel. So the Book of Samuel, second, that
Yes.
verse is on it.
Okay,
Yeah,
I love it, guys. I love it. So Arsene, what about it?
Man, I don't even know where to start. So I'm just gonna, the way my thoughts are gonna come in, I'm just gonna give it to you.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Just
buddy.
cut and roll. So
Yeah.
obviously, just like these great guys, I was born in the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. Left there in '97. I lived in Zambia between 1997
Yes.
through 2006, and then my family moved to Lexington. And at that time, Philip was already here. I always tell this story. The first time I ever met Philip, the first day I ever met Philip, I walked
can't believe he's
in his
bringing it
house.
here.
And now I have to bring it because this is all part of fashion, right?
Right.
Because sometimes there's a difference between style and fashion. And I feel like when we first came to the United States, we were in that trendy space. So the first time I meet Philip, he's about 13 years old, and I'm like 14 years old. And obviously at the time in early 2006, everybody was still wearing like a long t-shirt. So Philip is about maybe 5'7", and he's wearing like a 3X shirt that goes all the way up here, and and the shirt goes all the way almost down to his knees. I'm like, man, what is this? What is he wearing?
And I was
You know?
ironing it too.
Yeah, and he was ironing it. I'm like, what is he gonna do with that? So that obviously that's my first impression of Philip, and we normally call him like the motto of the family because Philip, we just give it to you as far as like just different styles. And I've learned a lot just from being around him. But as far as like my influence, I would say it all starts back with the roots as far as like family. My mom owned a shop. She used to sell clothes all the time, and then there were so many on Sundays or Saturdays when I wasn't going to school. She always wanted me to be around like that business end of things. So she would just have me go to the shop with her, and then she'd show me like, hey, this is how much these clothes are. So I was around that, and that kind of like influenced me as far as like just like style. Like, man, I would like to have this clothes, but at the same time, that was our way of that was the family income, so I couldn't wear all the clothes anyway. But I would sit there as a kid. I'm like, man, I would love to own those pants. I would like to own this and that. And then another, as far as family, his mom, which I'm surprised he didn't even mention, is a tailor. She designs clothes, and I'm surprised he even forgot that part.
Why do you forget?
It's coming.
It's coming. It's going to be part of it. And
sure,
one thing that I was also going to say was, as far as fashion, another story about him. I had these pants. I looked at these pants. I was like, you know what? This is trash. I don't need it anymore. I gave him the pants. 2 days later, I'm looking at him like, hey, are those the pants that I gave you? He's like, yeah. How did you get them like that?
So I tell him though.
My mom tailored it. I'm sure he had some input in that, right? So again, a lot of the fashion for most of us, it has a lot to do with, just like our upbringing, our background. A lot of Congolese love fashion. And then, and obviously just growing up together, we kind of like all influenced each other. Philip will come out with a different style, and I'm just laughing like, Philip, what are you wearing? And then a few days down the line, I'm like, oh man, this guy sees style like 2, 3, 4 years from now. Things that I was laughing about, like, what are you wearing? Everybody else is wearing the same thing, things like that. And as far as for me, like I remember when I was in my undergrad, I ended up going to undergrad in Richmond, Indiana, at Earlham College. I played soccer there for 4 years. And I remember, man, I would just go in my closet. I wouldn't even plan what I was gonna wear. It was something that I was feeling at that time. I would just go to my closet, look through some stuff, and I put some stuff together, and then I'll have people go, man, that's really nice. That's a really nice style, man. Have you ever thought about doing this? Have you ever thought about, maybe having a shop, things like that? So I owe that to these guys, especially these two guys. Like one thing that I've taken from him is when you wear something, it's about the confidence that you have. You make the clothes. The clothes did not make you at all.
Yeah.
You know, Philip will wear like the most random stuff, but the way he's carrying himself, you know what I'm saying? Like the way he's carrying himself makes the clothes like, oh man, that's really cool. You know, and then with him too, he has a different style, like as far as like more dressy. And I feel like I try to steal from here and I try to get a little bit of my style and just have like a mesh of that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's exactly where I was going next was the confidence side of things. So we'll touch on a couple things you uncovered there. Cut and sew. I want to talk about what your mom does from a tailoring standpoint. 'Cause that's huge right now in the vintage community. Everybody's trying to create their own one-of-one piece.
Right.
Or, you know, it's kind of gone back to cut and sew
Right,
from
yeah.
the everything from the jeans to the shirts. So we'll touch on that a little bit too. We might be here for a couple hours. You guys in a hurry?
Nah, we're not in a hurry, man.
So let's talk about the confidence part of it because I agree with that 100%. I think, you know, depending on, you know, I don't know if you are this way, but the mood kind of my mood is dictated a lot of times by the weather.
Yeah.
I don't know why,
I love it.
but so for me, it's always like when I go in there, I might not know what I'm going to wear, but if it's raining outside or if it's something, I know that where I'm going.
Right.
So, you know, where I was going with that is from a confidence standpoint is being able just to throw something on, look in the mirror and feeling good. How does that come easy? Because I mean, especially with you know, I just met you guys, but
Yeah.
Philip is like, he blows my mind every time I see him. I'm like I could never think about putting
Right.
you know, pinstripes,
Yeah.
different types of pinstripes together, different patterns. I mean, the colors are one thing, but
Right.
the patterns are what I struggle with.
Yeah.
So talk about that. What is that confidence level just?
For me, it's all about perception. You know, just like he said, you know, don't let the clothes make you. You have to make the clothes, you know.
Okay.
And I think it starts there. It's having that confidence and the ability to know, okay, this is what I want. And this is how I want to carry myself. Because to me, if you ask me, fashion has never been about brands or whatever, you know. It was always about the way to express your inner light, right? And the way to express myself. So, like I said, if something really fits with my vision, right? And whatever the weather is and whatever atmosphere, whatever it is, that it fits that style that particular day, then that's what I go with because I'm all in it, right? I always tell my friends, like, I don't want to go places and then I'm thinking about, oh man, I should have been wearing this. I should have been wearing this. I should have been wearing this. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is one thing that I have refused. And I have done a couple times early in my life because it takes time, right? What we're talking about here takes time. I just didn't wake up with the ability to just go in my closet and be like,
Right.
yo, today I'm rocking this, I'm rocking that. No, it's because I put in some times into it, also putting in some thoughts and my feelings and my emotions into it, right? And it takes time, right? Like I said, I didn't go to a fashion school or any of that kind of stuff. Everything is just from within, and that's the way I want to express myself, right? Yeah, it's knowing yourself first before anything, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. It
Yeah.
makes total sense. I change. Maybe that's why my style changes so often. Because I just I joke with my wife's like, so the '90s stuff is just huge right now.
Yeah.
And so I try to wear the '90s stuff, and my wife's like, Aaron, you're 41, you can't wear the '90s stuff. You look like you just kept it your entire life. And I'm like, that's a good point. So I gravitate more towards the '80s type style, and things like that, just because I can remember growing up, and it's kind of the nostalgia factor for me of that. But so Albert, talk a little bit about what you're doing here. How did you you talked a little bit, obviously, with your mom being a tailor and having a love and passion for fashion and style. Anyways, what give a little bit about your background, about kind of how you got to this point to kind of go out on a limb and start your own business.
I think, just being around these guys and stuff, always, one thing I hate is being able to, oh, this is what they're doing, I'm gonna do that. I've always been, like I'm more like an artist. I like that because I like to cook. I like, something I've gotten recently with him.
Renaissance man.
Yeah, it's gardening. Yeah, not a jack of all trades, Renaissance man. And when I look at clothes, I can sit here, I can go up, and I'll look at someone's jacket. The sleeves are up, and that will bug me the whole night.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
I'm the same way. My wife will go to an event or we'll do something, and I'll be like, oh, that guy's shirt is killing me.
Yeah.
She's like, just let it go, and it'll be like too big, and it'll be like bunched up here.
Yeah.
Like, just somebody needs to go tell him just to roll the sleeves up.
See, not to throw you off the point. To me, I'm actually the opposite. When I see that, then my mind automatically starts to create. as wrong as it could be or as
Yeah.
nice as it could be, if someone truly messed it up out there by societal standards, I'm like, I'm going to twist that thing up, you know what I mean, and make it my
Yeah.
own way. So that's a little bit where my inspiration was
Yeah,
coming from,
yeah.
not to leave it out there.
No, I
I'm not
like
to
it,
take you
man.
off.
I like that mindset because
Yeah.
for me, it's just like with policies and principles and norms.
Mm.
I think fashion. If you think about where fashion comes from, one of the first king of England was the French king, and introduced a lot of fashion back then in the days. And if you look at the city of Venice, and how they used to wear those. And if you go all the way back to Renaissance man and medieval and all that stuff, and what fashion meant for kings, it was something for it was a leisure thing. And then moving forward back in the 1900s, having a tailor was somebody you had to be wealthy, right? To have a tailor, things were customized for you. And the generation we live today, I mean, perfect thing like the cars is customized for you. Your house, your smart house is customized for you.
Yeah.
And people don't want to match anymore. They don't want to look like a soccer team. My mother, one thing I learned from my mother was to take something that's laid on the table and make it to something that's so unique that somebody can put on with so much confidence. I learned things like being able, like how you pick your vegetables at the stove or your coconuts. I pick fabrics like that, like I can feel like I say, this is a S120, this is a S100, this is a this, right? This is that. And I was able to do that, right? I like to touch, feel, smell, right? And then so when I think about that, or when I look at him, I like to lay down the fabric. I'm like, this is what you're gonna wear this way, right? And I'm like, they're like, well, what if I this? I was like, no, don't wear this because you're going to this event. So I think about where you're going, what your lifestyle is, and I create your lifestyle with the clothes, right? If you like to walk around, run around, and just be home all the time, whether it's, I can take a very nice pinstripe and customize it something that you can wear all the time comfortably, right? I'm like, you don't wear this cashmere, you don't wear this, you wear that. And so my mother taught me that, right? It's such a unique skill that's so rare now that back then, like, I mean, you can pick up girls with, you can go to the bar and be like, hey, guess what I can do? I can put a button on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, nobody cares. Like, but now it's like that thing, right? So I was like, man, like, it was embarrassing. I was embarrassed to even talk about it. I never really talked to them. I was like, the guys, they knew I could but I did it for myself. I didn't want to tell anybody because I was like, oh, this is embarrassing, right? Because there's nothing manly about that and whatsoever. But if you look at things, people like Tom Ford and people like that, they've literally educated people, not just to come in and buy a piece of cloth, but this is what this means to you. And this is how long it's going to last to you, right? And this is what it means to you as a man. And so he creates character. And I had to understand what I'm selling. And recently I had a conversation with this guy. I'm not selling clothes, I'm selling confidence, if you think about it, right? Yeah. So, and it gets me excited. It's wedding is one of the example. I was afraid that I was going to screw up all the time. I was nervous the whole time, right? Because I knew I was doing something for him, right? So, and that's what pushes me to do better. And then even if I do good and he's happy, I still feel like I can do better than what I did.
Yeah.
So
you're a perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
He's a perfectionist.
I'm sick.
You keep looking over there. Yeah. So you do sew, right?
So I do, and I don't sew regular to where I can be like, let me sit down and sew all this put together, but I can put the cloth down and I can design it, and I can tell my mother, this jacket should be sewn like this because this is how it is. Okay. So like I'm more on the designer's perspective of it. I can put the pins on you and kind of put chalks all over your body, and then take it off and say, okay, let's get the tailor to come in and put this piece together.
Yeah.
Because so I can rip it apart and say this needs to be taken in, this cannot be taken in because it's gonna mess up the pockets. So the very first phase of it's kind of like architecture, right? Before I don't take the hammer and the nail and put it back into the wood, right? I say this is what this house should be like, right? Mm-hmm. And then and I get contractors to come in.
Oh yeah. Get the team to come in and put it together.
Yes, right. So that's it.
So what about from that standpoint, as far as
that's probably styling is probably more your side of things, putting it together, laying it out, So what goes into that thought process? When someone comes in, like let's say for me, because I wear suits, just about every day.
Yeah.
So someone comes in and they tell you do you ask them, what do you do? What do you like to do? What are some things you enjoy? Or do you just kind of whatever? How do you just feel that vibe from them and put it together? How's that?
Well, I asked them a few things. And you can tell when they hate suit. A lot of people, especially on generation, most people don't wear suit because they have that. They have that first experience with that suit interaction. They're like, man, my dad gave me this jacket. And I hated it, right? And then so being able to understand something between off the rack, a custom, a made to measure, and a bespoke suit. And bespoke suit is, Santoria, it's second skin, right? That means these jackets are created. It feels like you're not wearing a jacket. How do you create such an art to where somebody says, I'm gonna wear this every day forever? And when my clients come in, I ask them basic questions, and I'm looking at them, I'm like, have a drink. And then with a drink, they kind of get loosey a little bit, so they kind of tell me that they're kind of a little more honest with me. And they'll say, like, what do you hate about it? They're like, well, I'm here to get a suit and this. I'm like, no, but tell me honestly, like, why are you here? Like, why are you not? And then they will tell me, listen, I want something better. I've always worn this. I'm always sweaty. I'm always this. I feel uncomfortable. My pants are very tight. So when I hear all that, my mind, I'm like, okay, so what do you do? Well, I'm a lawyer. Or earlier today, I had 3 detectives. They came in here. They have like, put back your weapon, put back your pistols. Let me see how you guys dress. Like, you sleep for too long. Like, what is that? Half a centimeters of the shirt every time. They're like, well, I didn't notice. My wife said it's all right. I was like, well, your wife. Like, do you tell your wife how her dress should be? Yeah. And a lot of men are not educated because grooming is like a taboo thing to talk about. It's, hey, let's not talk about our hair right now. Let's talk about football. Let's talk. No girls goes out there and say, "Oh, your nails are horrible." That guy's nails are really nice, and I'm not gonna date that guy, right? So it's not just the fashion. So when you understand those guys, the character, what they do for a living every day, how can you take a plumber and put them in a double-breasted place of shirt, right? So when I see them, every time I'm sitting down there, I can imagine. I can just close my eyes. I can see every single fabric on their body, and then I look at things like skin tone. Right? I'll say, this color is bad for your skin tone. It's like, well, how did you know? I'm like, well, I was like, you hate pinks. You can't wear pink. He's like, man, I hate pinks. How did you know? Because it's not because, and one thing that also helped me, I'm a big reader. I love psychology. I'm into psychology so much.
You got one on the set today.
Understanding, he's the master in psychology. I like understanding people and their need, because body language is 80% of people's language, right? Communication. So when you're sitting there, the way you're talking, you're sitting kind of fun. If you're doing this, I'm looking at you, and I'm like, wow. If you are introvert, you cannot wear lighter color, loud colors, because it's gonna attract the wrong people and you're gonna hate your life. So I gotta wear darker colors. So if you're extrovert, this is what you have to wear, and this and that, and all that is part of fashion. So you don't just come in by suit or a shirt or a pair of shoes. Everything is if a flat foot. Okay. Oh yeah, I do have a flat foot. How far do you wear dress shoes? Well, I'm not that foot. I like my sneakers, and then so we customize shoes for you. Yeah. That way they get comfortable, right? So stuff like that, and it's very, very viable. I think I knew I could do it. I knew the city of Lexington needed something like that, but I did not know how to start. So I worked with the biggest firm in town, Joseph A. Bank. So I gave myself 3 months to get promoted to manager, right? If I couldn't do it, then I wasn't ready. So that's what I did.
I love it, dude. I love it. That's a great story, man. And it's almost as you talk about it and describe it, because I've always loved fashion and style and things, but you're taking it to another level when you're able to read, like you said, people's body language or what their interests are, or you talk about skin tone going. I can remember, that's such a big part of wearing, fashion is understanding what colors you can and can't wear.
Right.
And me, I still think I can wear everything and look good. But my confidence might be too far off.
I love it.
But what's cool about it is from a psychology standpoint, you're building confidence in those people. They don't even realize it.
Right.
Right.
You know, you're putting
Yes.
something together for them to be like, damn,
Yeah.
I look good. You know,
Yeah.
I feel good.
Yeah.
And so I do have a question for you, because me buying suits,
Yes.
you know, I would love to own. I'd love for my closet to be custom
Nice.
suits.
Woo.
And with that comes money, lots of you know, higher in price.
Yes.
So my question is, the reason I've never really gone all in on customized suits is because my weight fluctuates.
Right.
And you know, and depending on if it's winter, if it's summer, how
Yeah.
much I'm running,
Yeah.
things like that. So how do you have? Is there?
So there's this
How does
thing-
that fit in?
Well, in my company, I call it the 3-inch rule. 3 inch. I leave a layer extra meat in your suit to where I can either open up a suit and condense it and contract it
Okay.
all the time, right? And 3 centimeters wide and then 3 centimeters back. So when I do your hair, I don't cut to where it's like, oh, you're done. I cut to where I know this guy's gonna come back. It's probably gonna go a little bit, especially younger guys. And this guy's still growing, you know. So like, man, how old are you? Well, I'm this and this and that. And I'm okay. So this kid has maybe another more inch or 5 more inches to grow. So I think about that because again, this goes back to old age and how these wealthy people were treated, right? They would have this Facebook suit that would pass down $15,000 age or more, right? Passed down in generation to generation. It's like, how did his father wear this suit and his son is wearing this suit? Because they were able to do that. And then so I've dug so much deeper and just looking at how the tailoring game works. And then so looking at you when I do that suit from scratch, you spend, you know, like minimum $2,000. And I know, okay, I look at you, okay, so what do you do? Well, this is why I like to work out. Okay, good. And I can tell, it's like, okay, so well, what do you like to eat? I ask my clients all that because I can tell how fast they can get weight. And then I think about how much later I can serve, right? So shirts are the same way for me. And so my clients, when they come in, it's not like a one-time investment today, it's a long-term investment. They bring those things back to me and they have warranties where within 1 year, 6 months, you can still come in. The average human being gains weight in about 3 months or so, the body kind of starts changing a little bit. And then 6 months, you still come back for free and I still take off you free of charge, fix up the suit for you and then whatnot. And
That's
then,
amazing.
And then we do it again, right? And all the measurements are set in the system. You don't have to come here. We call you. The next thing I want to be doing with the company, moving up once second location comes into play in Cincinnati or Louisville. That's what I'm looking at. It's going to be the 3D, install 3D scanning body scanners to where they don't read the measurements only, but they read how much fat you have on your skin. So and that determines, we get to determine how we should customize your clothes or your shoes to where it lasts a little longer. And that's just the future that we're living at. Yeah.
That blows my mind. You know, that's crazy. I mean, because you put so much thought behind that,
Yes.
and it's so much bigger than just, you know, customizing a suit or a style for somebody. I mean, you know, that's one of the things that, you know, with what I do on an everyday basis, you know, working with dermatologists and plastic surgeons and, you know, talking to them about, you know, investing in a long-term business, you know, and what that looks like and what that business relationship looks like. And I love that because I think that's something that's lost big time in business is everybody wants to make that dollar right now. They don't care about the dollar tomorrow or the next day or the next day from that one customer. And so, you know, if they ship it, it's not what they want and they don't make it right or they don't do this, they're not responsible from that standpoint. And I think what you're doing clearly is you're investing in, you know, the person and the human being. And when you do that, man, it just, you know, it makes things it's a game changer.
I mean, we're creating the trickle down concept of corporate, right? Where trickle down from the top up is a system where the top benefits and then the bottom guys don't benefit. I wanted to reverse engineer everything, and I always talk about that word is trickle, you know, from a trickle up concept where if my clients are excited, you know, to be here, they can't wait to come in, have a drink, and tell me I want a suit. I'm not doing my job, right? So for me, it's an investment, not just into products and all that. So I think about it, that kind of reverts back even my manufacturers, right? Are those guys happy? If they're happy, they create a product, right? So most of my shoes I customize online, and then they get shipped all over the place, all over the world. I don't even know who's buying my shoes, so to speak, but it's how do you control that, right? So, and how do you control the quality, and how do I control the service with you? There's something about this that the internet, all these new tools that will never change, right? You can't offer somebody a cup of coffee through Facebook, right? And then so, and for me, it's that idea, right? It's like you said, hey, uh, I'm not just gonna invest in this suit. I know, and then people think about, man, like how much? Oh man, this is expensive. Look at people like Joseph A. Bank. Yes, you get an affordable is $500 suit and whatnot, but you pay arm and a leg when it comes to alterations, right? And then they forget about you. So there was a lot of problems with huge companies like this because it's just a turnaround. It's just like, what's our bottom line? What's our bottom line? And I want to go back in the old ages and say, you know what? This is a luxury thing. This is something that somebody's worked hard for, the hard-earned money, and they have to feel like giving twice as much value that every dollar you give me, I try to give you back twice or three times as much value for each dollar.
Yeah.
Right? And then that's it. Right?
And that's what it's about. I mean, when you can do that, like I said, that's taking care of the customer, and giving them what they need or what they want. That's the key.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit about, vintage is really hot right now.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about the vintage side of things. Have you thought about, going from that angle? Because, there are so many different, different avenues. Some people, for me, if I could find the vintage suits and stuff, that's probably what I would choose to wear on a daily basis. But, obviously they would need to be tweaked. Wear and tear on a suit so it breaks down after a while. So have you thought about maybe going into that at all or looking that avenue?
I think for me, I thought about it, but in a different way, in a way of, imagine 10 years from now, imagine 20 years from now, and being able to understand trend. And I think business entrepreneurs, one of the biggest problems for entrepreneurs is being able to sit down in a quiet place and just trying to envision what the next trend is going to be, right? And that's fashion, right? And that's how fashion is all the time, right? A lot of people go on the top, they like wake up in the morning, they just cut the shirt, this says something, I know what I'm wearing, right? And then you just spark up because of influencers, right? I think for me, I think about that shirt that you're wearing, what is the long-term investment of that, right? And I just minimize the downside. Vintage clothes are always going to be around, but for me is I can create them, right? Tailoring, you can tailor the clothes. That's another business, but being able to pivot your company and make it scalability, right? How do you adapt to your surrounding? Yes, trends, they're there. I recognize them. Somebody can come in here and say, hey, I got this vintage suit. I want to do this, I want to do this. And then I sit there and I just take this Picasso and I just redraw it in a different way. I made the upside down, it's different art, right?
Use the fabric.
Use the same fabric,
Yeah.
right? And there's people who come in and say, man, this shirt is big. How can you take this shirt and make it into a custom shirt, right? So, and it's like, oh man, I don't want a new shirt. I love this shirt, right? So, and being able to do that is so much power. Taking a Toyota and turning into a Mercedes, right? Basically, that's the game, right? And having that talent, I can count how many people in the world that have it, just maybe my fingers, and it's not that many anymore. And if you look at people like what is it? Tom Ford was working for Gucci, realized the market wasn't doing so well, and he moved to Tom Ford because not because Gucci was a horrible place for him. He saw a trend. He saw something that was cultivating into the industry, but no one else was able to see it, and Tom Ford was born. Right? If you look at Christian Dior, like started with dresses, right? And this guy was a garden, he got a designer. He loved it, and he was drawing dresses, making dresses from gardens, right, and flowers. And then after that, he realized, oh man, he didn't want to do an advanced product, and then but the company had a pivot, right? So if you look at a lot of people like that, like me, what I'm trying to do is not just be known for high end. Have Renaissance Man, he mentioned that. Have a really one good product that you would do good at, that you were the only best person to do that, and then have all these other little products that complement that thing, right? And those things, the little products, those are the ones that kind of make you adaptive, scalability, and stuff like that. You can ask me a question. Okay, this is a good idea, but I like it. How can you clone this? How can you make it scalable? Investors want to hear that. My clients want to hear that because I'm going to share this with the rest of the world, right? So being able to think about that every day, right, and be ahead.
I'm going to move this closer. I want to make sure we're capturing everything via. Are you in there, Arsene? Still? Let's see. Let's see. I want to make sure we get all the same. But so let's talk about that for a second. Philip, you guys can jump in here too. So you talk about the entrepreneurship side of things, and the scalability and all of that. That's interesting because there's two different sides, I think, of the kind of vintage industry, or the whatever you want to, how you were going to call it, the fashion style. You have, like I said, you have the people who are in it from a standpoint of entrepreneurship, and then you have in money, and that's really all they care about. And then you have the other side that is collectors, and they study and they learn, and they try to understand the style and the fashion and the fabric and the make. And for me, on my end, it's never been about the money. It just hasn't. For me, it's the networking and the, being around other people and talking shop with other people about things that I enjoy. And so for me, it's almost like a hobby. And I guess you would say I'm probably more of a collector first than I am anything else. Although I do like the thrill of the hunt of going out and trying to find cool pieces and things, because I think about it from a different perspective. Like the shirt that I have on, I think about who wore this before me, what their story was, what kind of life they lived, who they were. And so for me, that's kind of what I enjoy about it. You mentioned trends, and we'll touch on that. But one of the things that I like the most about older clothing is that it's made so well. And I think, unless you're coming to someone like yourself who is researching that and knowing the fabrics and and all of that, when you go buy something off the rack, the quality is nothing.
Yes, that's right.
And so and I get that needs to be there, I think, for a reason. But at the same time, for me, I like going and buying things because it seems like in the 80s, even 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that time period stuff was made so well.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't know if it was because there was more sweat and tears and passion put into creating it, or what. But so I just wanted to touch base on that from a trend standpoint. I think you hit the nail on the head. You've got so many different avenues of this business, but I think your mindset and what you guys are doing is where you need to be from a standpoint of an entrepreneurship, but at the same time, there's that passion and that love for what you do. And the educational standpoint of knowing, your Christian Dior's and your Gucci and how they built themselves and how they started and what their inspiration is. So talk a little bit about trends. So do you all, you said you as an entrepreneur, you sit there and you think about the trends that are coming and things that are coming up next. Do you all tend to follow trends, or do you tend to kind of set the trend?
On the trend side, Arsene is a lot more cultured than me. So I wonder what you got to say on that end.
So as far as trends go, right, my take on it will be this. I feel like the way, when we were a little bit younger, it was more like, man, this is cool. And that's the reason why I brought up that example at first. Like when I first met Philip, it was like, I need to move in a little bit. So when I broke, so the story.
We'll make sure we're talking loud here because I want to catch everything you guys are saying.
Yeah, let's do it. So as I was saying, when we were younger, I feel like we were more on a trendy side. Right. The first time I met Philip was wearing like the long shirts. Albert too. You remember that red shirt It was the funniest story, man. Albert was like 5'6" and 5'4". He's wearing this big red shirt and it's going all the way close to his ankles, right? But that's an aside. But I would say like when we were younger, it was more trendy. But now the way I look at it, I feel like we have we have emotions, obviously, right? And I feel like the things that we like, other people are gonna like them somehow, some way. And I feel like that's what fashion is all about. Like I feel like wearing this, right? So if I saw Philip wearing this back in high school, I'd be like, what is this, right? But like people that really understand fashion, I feel like as adults, the emotions that we have, like I feel like dressing like this. Now that I see Philip wearing this, I might not take the whole style, but I might take a little bit from Philip and then I'll tweak it into my own style. Even yourself, like I have some ripped off jeans, you know, as soon as I walked in here, I saw your style. I was like, man, I like what that guy has on. Right. So I might wear the ripped jeans and then I might just maybe wear different style shoes. Yeah. So to a degree, I guess it's trendy, but it's like, I'm looking at it from a standpoint like, you know, we all inspiration. We all kind of like inspire each other somehow, some way. But we at this point we don't necessarily like follow like a trend. And I try to be very mindful about what we buy. I was just talking to John. John is Philip's younger brother. He's up in New Hampshire. We're excited. He's going to move back home here soon. He bought this shirt, the Civil. Did you see it? I saw that. And one thing that I told him was like, John, you need to be mindful about, you know, buying some of these things because let's say you buy like 10 of those shirts and then it goes out of style. Now you have 10 of these shirts that you don't wear on a daily basis because, you know, it's just out of style. People are not wearing it as much. So the simple answer I would say is we try to kind of like get inspired more than following the trend. And we try to go by the feelings that we have in that particular moment. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'll even take it deeper to a standpoint where I mentioned earlier, it's about understanding thyself and knowing thyself in the sense of like, I mean, he said it, you know, in probably an allegory way, but like, that's everything, you know, being able to know what you like, you know, first and foremost, right? It's like a human thing. Like, if you know you're not good at math, then that's probably what you're going to do in college. You're going to try to do everything in your power to avoid math in college. If reading an actual thing, then I'm pretty sure you're going to try to do anything to, you know, just to go around this. So it's the same way I look at it with style as well. You know, being able to know what you want in the first place. Of course, not everybody has that ability. But like for me, if I have to speak on my behalf, and these guys here, is understanding like, okay, this is what we like. He's right on the money. And I think a little bit, the reason why we're off trend, I think it had to do with just culture assimilation. You know, from coming from Africa and being introduced into a new country, you know, because we grew up, like I said earlier, we went to school in uniform and usually, you know, iron pants and dress up shirts and a tie, sweater if it was cold, your shoes had to be polished and everything, right? So we came to America and going to a public school where you can wear whatever you wanted to wear, you know, like you know what I mean? So that was a culture shock to us at the time. So I'm not going to lie. As a teenager, trying to figure out my way, and keep in mind that was in middle school. We all know all kinds of things. You know, I mean, this guy can tell you, you know, if for someone who has worked into the public school system and as a mental psychologist himself, like, you know, like I love having conversation with them because even though I'm having this conversation with them, it's also my healing. It's my therapeutic moment, right? So yeah, but like, you know, long story short, like middle school is when I came here, and like I said, quick story, I went to school looking like this. And I'll be honest with you, I walked up and down through the hallway. Everybody was asking me if I had somewhere to be, right? Like, I swear to you, like everybody was coming up to me like, you just got here today, you going somewhere? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you guys, you know what I mean? Are you guys going places? And this kid came up to me and was like, yo, why you wearing your dad's shoes, bro? You know what I mean? I'm like, this ain't my dad's shoes, no. But in my mind, I'm like, this is the way you're supposed to show up at school. Right? And I'm looking around, everybody's looking at me weird. So you know what I did the next day? The next week, I went to Walmart. I'm like, man, this is a different game over here. So that's when I went and bought the t-shirt that he's talking about, right? And I kid you not, it was probably till after my freshman year, my sophomore year. And I just came to a realization like, wow, this isn't truly me, because once I begin to understand the culture and how everybody's always biting off the trend, and I'm like, oh, see, this is what they do it. It's because ACA has been popularized by someone else, so they follow and they bite off of it. But in reality, it's not really the norm or the rule, right? It's just societal standards. It's just what everybody's excited after. It's that's what trend does, right? And once I begin to understand that, and that's when I became my whole person again. You know what I mean? I had to go back to the roots in a sense of like, ah, so this is who I am, and I've been escaping. You know what I'm saying, for my personality for no reason. For
And
something that I
you
didn't
probably
know about.
didn't feel comfortable at all
I
in
did
that,
not feel
in that white
comfortable.
shirt.
These guys were here that like they know how much like we switch up the style. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like from just I would say probably from that, yeah, from freshman year, sophomore year, that whole year,
Yeah.
you know, it was ups and downs. Like we tried everything, you know, everything in the
Fit
sense of
in.
just trying to fit in and trying to discover that identity, because we thought like, wow, this is the normal here. But then, like you say, we came to understand like this is a trend. And once we begin to mix it up with our own personality within it, then it became like a new trend within the high school, you know?
Mhm.
So
Right.
that's kind of like how we also, me, I can speak on my behalf. That's also when I begin to discover my little self-confidence. It's like, huh, so you're like what I'm doing right now, but like, I thought this was the thing. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I guess I'm doing all right over here.
You
know what I
came to
mean?
you came to school in the white shirt, and then everybody else came to school in their dad's
Yeah.
shoes and shirt, and they were like, "I thought this was the trend."
Exactly. You know?
So talk about that. So
Yeah.
culture. Obviously, it plays a huge part in fashion and
Yeah.
style, and the black culture across the board has kind of set that standard, and
Yeah.
at least that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Right.
Growing up as a kid, I was born in '78.
Yeah.
And then, just my first cassette was Run DMC.
Nice.
And so I kind of really discovered hip hop from that standpoint.
Yeah.
And then, 87 came, it came out in 86, and then 87 came, and I discovered the Beastie Boys and their style and just everything. And so my mindset said as a kid was,
Yeah.
I want the Adidas suits. I want but then I took it to my own level.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a small town, and trend. It was all about the trend,
Yeah.
and
You
so
from Kentucky?
Mhm,
Nice.
yeah. So I grew up in a small town, it's a farming community outside of Paris called Nicholas County, Carlisle.
Okay.
I don't know if you are familiar with it at all.
We are very familiar with you said Paris.
Paris, yeah,
It's
yeah.
Bourbon County High
Yeah,
School.
yeah.
So we used to play soccer back in
Yeah.
high school. That's how
We didn't even have a soccer team.
Oh wow.
I played football, and that was it.
Nice.
I ran track and played football.
Track
So,
guy right
yeah.
there.
So, so for me, it's interesting you bring that up, because it was a small town, and we're talking 1,800 people.
Oh wow.
Right.
And
Not that many
and,
people.
and I graduated. There were 72 people in my graduating class.
Wow.
So that's how small it was. And out of that 72, I think probably 12 to maybe 15 went to college.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a farming community built in a factory. There was Jockey International was there. That was the home of Jockey International. It went overseas and kind of closed that factory. So a lot of people in the community had to come to Lexington and other places for factory jobs and things like that. But so I was always trying to have my own style and all of that. So I know how you feel from that standpoint of going to school and everybody making fun of me, be like, "What are you wearing? What is that? What are those shoes?"
Right.
And of course, I was confident. I felt good.
Yeah.
That was the important thing. And then it's funny because like 2 or 3 weeks later, you'd see somebody wearing the same thing.
Yeah.
So you kind of feel that makes you feel good when you create that style or that
Yeah.
trend.
Absolutely.
But little did a lot of people know that I was pulling that from every album I looked at, every album cover, every magazine I looked at.
It's inspiration.
Yeah, and it inspired me to do that. And so talk about that. How culture has influenced not only your all's style, but just in general across the world. Especially in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, speaking on that, it's actually big, man. Like I said, this is even beyond fashion. This is almost like an historical event for me, and I'll say even for the nature of our country's sake. How everything just came up as far as like the fashion culture and things like that. Because within the DRC, we have this movement. It's called Les Sapeurs, right? And this is just a bunch of great guys, men and women, not only guys, who have get together and they view style as a platform to express themselves in positivity. Because I don't know if you know anything about the DRC, like the country has been going through a brutal civil war since 1994, right? And the Congo has a lot of history with that. So that, like I said, that movement of the saper kind of like gives people something to believe in, and it gives people a sense of dignity and a sense of humanity just by putting on clothes, right? And by you walking upside down the street, it makes you forget about your problems, right? And it, like I said, it gives you that life confidence to move in life. That way, regardless of what's going on around you, at least you have something to be proud of, right? You can get together with a group of guys who think like you, basically just a community that accepts each other, and everybody's focusing towards the same goal, right? Which is just uplifting one another, you know. And the story of that even goes beyond that, because a lot of the things most people don't know this. I'm sure people do, those who are educated on the subject. Like a lot of people don't know that there were African soldiers who fought during the World War II, right? When we think about World War II, we only think about the Ally and I don't know what the other ones. What do you call them? Like the Axis and what I like. You know, I know it was Germany, Italy on one side.
He's the history guy.
is not my strong
He's
suit.
the history guy.
Yeah,
we talk.
When I
try to learn.
got shot away from those.
Well, right, like you know, so, but I'm like when we think about World War II or even World War One, we only think about the European countries and in the United States, right? A lot of people really don't know that there were a lot of Africans that even fought during the war, right? And so the way it was done, so after World War II, right, majority of those African soldiers that fought during the war, a lot of them did not get paid like by currency. You know, they didn't pay them with currency, cash, or anything like that. So in return, a lot of all these Western countries, they paid them in clothing, right? So when those guys got back into the country, right, and it was something new, because that was like a reward. Can you imagine people went and fought for their lives and they will pay back? You know, clothing was like something that they, as I was saying, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure those guys probably didn't mind, because they knew probably in their mind they're probably fighting for something bigger than themselves, right? So, but that was the price. That's what they got back in return. So by the time they got back, let's say in Congo, where I'm from, right, and the movement started, like, you know, those soldiers who went and fought during World War II, everybody was looking at them like in the streets, like, man, where'd you get this shirt at? You know, so it was something new. So they brought a new, they brought in a new culture without even realizing. So people were totally unaware of what was going on, but they could recognize what they were wearing. Yeah. Right. And from there on, the culture grew bigger and bigger and bigger till this day. I'll be honest with you, the movement is still bigger, and it's also, you'll be surprised. Like, you know, it's some of the worst places, you know, in the DRC, but just the vibe and the confidence within the people, you'll be like, man, how are these people making it? And that's what clothes has been able to do for them, right? Historically, which was a horrible thing, you know, but it turned out to be something beautiful, because like I said, the civil war is still going on till this day, and clothes gives people something to thrive off, where they can forget about their problems. So that's where it comes for me, because even within our music, that's what they talked about. They sing about this thing. So it's almost like a history lesson to us, you know what I mean? Like, we know where our, you know, all these things originated from, you know? So, you know, it's like I say, it's a movement, and it's a very popular movement in the DRC, right? If you just go on your YouTube, whatever, you type in the saper or sapology, you will find those guys out there. You know, some of them a little bit, you know, extra, you know, they're out there. Those guys got charisma and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you see the goal and the vision, right? You understand, right? Yeah. So that's pretty much like, that's the history of like where all that mashup.
And so they built, you know, just to kind of build on that. So it sounds like, you know, not getting paid. So their passion, there's that love that they had for the clothing and the things that they were getting, you know, that kind of fed their soul, right? From that standpoint. And like you said, gave them that life and that spirituality. You know, that's one of the things I love about your page, man, is because, you know, it's not, you know, it's like you see the picture of you and you know, your style from head to toe looking cool. And but the thing is that you look at that and you're like, man, you know, Philip looks awesome. And then you go down and you read the caption, and it's like, this is bigger than what he's wearing. This is bigger than this picture. You know, he's talking from his heart, and so that's one of the things I love about you and what you do. So talk a little bit, Albert. What do you think as far from a culture standpoint with fashion?
Yeah, Philip definitely hit me on the head. But I think about even with just the history of Africa, and you know, if you look at like Egyptians, some of the first people very much, you know, like, you know, this kind of makeup, you know what I mean? And and just how a lot of Africans, tribes and all that stuff. Some people want big earrings, longer neck holes, like to the necks are so long, and all that, and that's all fashion.
We want to hear you.
And,
Don't cheat the people.
Don't cheat the people,
yeah,
man.
well,
Albert's soft spoken, but he has a lot of good stuff he's saying. I just hope everybody can hear it.
yeah, well, no, I feel like that is just the way to express themselves. There was a lot of people, like even in Africa today, that there was men had to dress different just to view themselves, to give themselves titles. We had to prove women, hey, this is look what I have, look what I can do. Look at all these rings that I have. This is the type of warrior I am, or I am worthy of becoming a man that you think I'm going to be for you, right? And all that was a sense of fashion. And that is the love of it. It's bigger and above and beyond all of our imagination, right? And then you move all across the other world, in Florence, Italy, Pitti Uomo, right? The biggest fashion, thing ever, right? Every year,
Yeah.
and there's people from all over the world that will come over and in unity. Whatever your skin color may be, what are wherever you're from, and everybody has one thing in common, right? And one thing that I've realized that does that a lot is food and fashion.
Oh yeah.
Like
music.
and music, and music. And you brought hip hop earlier, and hip hop was just a form of expressing themselves, telling, communicating in a coded way. Especially when hip hop started. And a lot of people were not able to express themselves because of political gain, political crisis situations. So hip hop was that. It was like a heated society. This is I'm going to talk about this. Only people from my own kind or from my own society, from my own community, will be able to understand what I'm talking about.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And fashion is the same way. And then giving over to like style, right? So when I address people, and that's what I think about it. I look at you and I see the way you move, the way you talk, your energy, everything, and I put that into fashion and I put it back on your body, right?
You're gonna style me then, right?
Yeah. So and that's what my culture has been very, very beneficial for me,
Right.
and for us. And we and earlier you brought up about trends. I'm like, I think we're trendsetters, and I know for me for sure because I see the world in my own image, and the world is not like that in reality, and I know I'm gonna change that.
Mm-hmm.
And every day I work hard to change one man at a time.
Absolutely.
And that's what trendsetters do.
Right.
And whether you're garden designer, whether you're a cooker or chef, whatever.
Yeah, let's touch on that because you talked. We're on the create and change, and I think that does. I think the one thing when you look at one thing that everybody loves, you're right. It's food, and it's style or fashion.
Absolutely.
It's they all have their own style or fashion. Some good, some bad, and then music.
Yeah.
You brought up hip hop and how they express, that was the way they expressed themselves,
right,
and told their story, and that's one of the reasons I love blues music,
right,
because before hip hop, that's where they told that
jazz.
story, and
Jazz.
and you could almost feel the the heart and the soul and the passion behind the story that they were telling.
Yes.
I don't like new country music. I love old country music because of that reason.
Right.
They tell a story.
Yes.
And my buddies get on me a lot because I'm struggling really hard to get on board with a lot of the new hip hop.
Yes.
Because
definitely.
because your De La Soul, your Chop Dog Quest, it was just there was such a meaning behind it and so much soul, and you felt that.
Yeah.
And now I just feel like people are mass producing this or that.
Absolutely.
And so I struggle with that from a music standpoint. Well, let's stay on the culture aspect of things.
Right. I would like to answer that question. And
100%.
while these guys were talking, especially, I think you're the one that started out with the whole like hip hop and how influential it is. And one thing I thought about when you opened out with that, and I think Albert mentioned that, Philip did as well. I was like one of those guys. Philip was really great at soccer. He was always outside practicing, and I was always the guy inside trying to figure out like what's going on with the trend.
Yeah.
Hey Philip, did you hear about this guy named Neil? Hey Phil,
That's why I say,
did
you know,
you
he's a culture
hear?
guy.
Did you hear about this new guy called A$AP Rocky? Did you see the crew? Do you see how everybody is dressing? You know?
Yeah.
Hey, did you hear about this person? You know, and I feel like that's what hip hop has done
Yeah.
for us as far as like fashion goes. Like whenever we watch these guys,
Yeah.
we take a little bit of whatever style they have.
Mhm.
And then when these guys started the page in the beginning, it all started out as ambassadeur,
Right.
right? And
Right.
I always feel like that term in itself,
Yeah.
for us being in the United States, I feel like we are ambassadors in a way because, yeah, we've lived half of our life over here and we lived half of our lives back home. We tried to kind of like mesh those two styles. And when I think about meshing two styles, I go back to like my wedding. I recently got married back in October.
Congratulations.
Thank you, I appreciate that, man. It was a good time. We have a video. We have to show him. The
We've
video.
got a pillow. Just pick it up.
Albert has the whole pillow. He dressed me for the wedding.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I'll definitely show it to everybody.
Yeah.
But
That's
what
so cool.
I was thinking about was just how we were able to embrace the two cultures.
Yeah.
So at the church we had the suits on, and then as soon as we got to the reception, we all transitioned into like our African attires.
Yeah.
You know, so that shows how much, you know, culture plays
Yeah.
a big part in our fashion in itself, right? And then
Right.
secondly, you know, the people that we around. I went to Earlham College. It's one of the most diverse schools in the United States. I was going to school with people from the Middle East, Hispanics. His lady is, you know, Hispanic, and he's around that environment. I'm around that environment as well. Like just seeing how, let's say, for example, Hispanics dress,
Yeah.
how people from the Middle East dress. You know, culture in itself, the United States is a melting pot. So our culture in itself has influenced us big time. The people that we are around, we try to be around people from different backgrounds. That has also played a huge part.
Yeah.
You know, and as I mentioned earlier, we also try to steal from each other a little bit of whatever Philip has, a little bit of whatever Albert has, and a little bit of whatever I took from elsewhere. So
Yeah.
definitely, man, culture has played a huge part in our fashion. A great deal.
Yeah.
A great deal. For
Yeah.
sure.
Big time, big time. Like for me, you know, this guy Papa Wemba, who's a country icon, recently passed away like a couple years ago.
Mhm.
Like what he was able to do with culture, he was like the Run DMC of the Congo.
Mhm.
You know, same thing like you're talking about. Because when you look at the Adidas, that's what you think about, right?
Mhm.
And when you see a guy who's just well dressed in the middle of the street in the DRC, the first guy comes in mind is Papa Wemba, because like I said, he was the one that was able to set that trend and take it to the next level, right? In the early 70s, right? And that's when like visa became accessible. Guys could travel, go to Europe,
Yeah.
and see what's out there a little bit. So they also bring in a little bit of that combined plus what they got from the 40s and the 50s, you know? So now Wemba was able to bring like Versace and Valentino Uomo and Nesta Uomo and all those brands like Congolese, and he sang about it. Like he has a songs like in every album of Papa Wemba, at least there's 2 songs on it just dedicated to fashion and all the brands in the world, you know?
Yeah.
And that was also one way of him just educating the world, not to brag about what he has, but that was his way of educating our culture. Like there's more out there into the world that we haven't seen. And it would be great if you guys can, you know what I mean? And have this access and just see, not necessarily buy these things, but just open your eyes, you know, because there's more out there to the world. Because if I'm not mistaken, he was one of the first superstars from the Congo to go and perform in Japan.
It's
You know, like this is Papa Wemba from Congo, and you have Japanese folks are singing Lingala, you know, in a sense, you know, you're like, how? But the relationship came through fashion first, because the Japanese knew his love of fashion, and that's how you communicate.
Oh, yeah.
And they brought him all the way up to Japan.
That's true.
And that's also representing Congo, you know, so he's
Yeah.
almost like a Congolese ambassador in Japan. And he's touched on it early in terms of our name, as far as like KY ambassador. That's literally where it all come from.
Okay.
You know, we are a representation of our culture right here in the United States, right? Yes, dressing up is cool and everything. I will touch base on this in terms of like what he does with the suits. It's just more than just you putting on that piece, okay, the money's there, gone. No, it's tuning into your whole humanity, man. And that's what it's all about. I think I don't know if he said if he can inspire 1 minute at a time. That's what life is all about. You know, it's about uplifting one another and inspiring each other. We all love food. We all love fashion. Why not use it in a positive way that can bring the world together? And that's what I try to do to my page. You know, I understand like the style is great and I love the clothing and I love the interaction. But at the end of the day, there's more to it than me, right? It's giving my community, especially the refugee community, right? Because we talked about culture earlier, right? We grew up in a world where like education is the only thing that is viewed as your way to improve your upward mobility within a society, right? I play college soccer. My guy plays college soccer. He plays soccer as well. Like we were able to earn scholarship through football here in the United States, right? But that opportunity is not very accessible back home because it just doesn't exist. So your parents, their main focus is you have to get the education. You know, even what my guy is doing right now, like if he would have that conversation with his parents back home, they would look at him like, you're crazy. That's a ludicrous step. Go finish your education first, then go open up a shop, right? So me being able to understand that, yes, the fashion, the page is there, but there's also a community that follows me. And I'm also sending a message to these young folks that, listen up, kid. Just the fact that you were here and here and here and here, there's more to yourself that you can tap into, right? Look at me. It doesn't matter because I'm a youth program director of a nonprofit. That doesn't define me as my role. Just because I'm a coach doesn't mean I can't be involved with fashion or podcasting or, you know, speaking for the community or whatever, right? We're human beings because I think part of the problem is also sometimes we only view ourselves as physical beings, right? But we are more to that. We're relational, spiritual, mental, and physical at the same time, right? So that's part of humanity. So I view all that in one because when I'm posting my clothes, I know you're looking at my physical appearance, right? But when you read the caption, I hope it sends a message that I'm telling you it's just more than just showing up and looking fresh.
And that's what I said. You know, when you see the picture, you know, if you don't know you as a person, you know, and you know, reading the caption, I mean, it tells everything about you. You know, the person that you are and kind of what you represent. So let's talk a little bit about that. Albert mentioned earlier, changing one person at a time. You know, one human being at a time. So the last 2 weeks has been absolute chaos. You know, all over. And you know, I noticed your bracelet with the Black Lives Matter movement, and you know,
I've had this for like 2 years now.
So my question around this is, you know, is that maybe where do you all feel like maybe that's maybe where a barrier is from a race standpoint with a lot of people in America, that they're not open to learning and understanding, you know, the culture aspect of it or the history aspect of it, or you know, because everybody has you know certain type of feelings when it comes to, you know, what affects their mindset and their opinions and things like that. But you know, do you think part of it is that people just aren't open to the mindset of understanding what brings us together? Because we talked about, you know, we all eat food, we all you know, we all wear clothes, we all listen to different types of music and things like that. But you know, do you think that where does that come into play to people kind of being, I guess, not educated or understanding what they need to understand?
Before we even dissect that, right? And I hope our viewers don't get this perspective in any way wrong, right? And I'm happy you brought this question, right? Because I think for those who can view the three of us, they probably know where we stand, right? So before we dissect into it, I want to hear kind of like your perception, you know, and some of just what's going on right now and how you feel about the whole thing. Because I think, you know, that's where we can start, you know, by listening to the other first, you know?
Well, for me, it starts with my parents. Both my parents have passed away. And, you know, I was raised in a church community. And so for me, it was put into me by my parents to love everything, every human being, every living thing. And that's how I've lived my entire life. Now, to say, obviously, you know, this feels different. You know, what's going on right now, what's happened the past 2 weeks feels different. And, you know, for me, from my standpoint, as being a very privileged, you know, white person growing up as a kid and still today, you know, for me, you know, I won't ever know what it feels like for someone to get mistreated or something to that effect. I've been very privileged. And, but from the standpoint of understanding how to treat other people and what it means to love other people and treat humans the way that you would want to be treated. And I
Yeah.
think that's God's message. You know, treat others the way that you would want to be treated.
Yeah.
That's how I've always viewed what I do every day.
Yeah.
You know, even using sales as an example, working with different people. It's not about what I sell. It's not about the money aspect of it. It's about connecting and understanding, their point of view and understanding, where they're coming from and who they are as a person.
Yeah.
So for me, the past, for me as a kid, you live a very selfish life. Sometimes you try to control the things that are around you. You're focused on, girls and other things in life, trying to, finish school, get out of school, and you don't really think about the people around you outside of your little bubble.
Right.
As an adult, that mindset changes. You have children, you have a family, you care, you want them to grow up a certain way and think and feel a certain way. Can't always, that doesn't always happen. They take their own paths. But for me, once I started not focusing on myself as an individual, which sometimes is hard to do, even as an adult, you start opening your eyes to the things around you and the things that aren't fair, the things that affect people differently. And so for me, it's never been about, race. It's more been about treating humans the way they need to be treated, in the way that I want to be treated. And that's what I teach. That's what I teach my kids. That's the way I was taught by my parents. I will say this, with social media and everything that's out there right now, little things talk about taking trends, like taking pieces here and there from people's fashion and taking it and making it your own. It's been really cool to be able to see people's perspective and their way of thinking, and then being able to research that, look at that, understand it, and kind of, learn. And I think that's the key for me. From that standpoint, I will never understand, I will never understand what it means to be harassed.
Absolutely.
But I do understand that that's not how you treat people.
Right.
And I would never want that for myself, my kids, or anybody around me.
Right.
And so for me, it's more based on, from that perspective, from a religious standpoint, just treating people the way you want to be treated.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the key. That's the way I've always lived my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the guy, for me, and my wife kind of messes with me, but, I'll get a spider in the house and release it outside.
I'm
kill
there
it.
with you.
So I'm wired that way. I've always been wired that way my entire life.
Yeah.
But for me, I think the one thing is that even at 41 years old, you think that you know, you think that you understand and that but I will never understand and I will never know. So for me, it's about hearing, listening, understanding, and being able to take what I'm taking in from other people, and being able to, educate my kids and the people around me. And I think what Albert said a minute ago, I mean, one person at a time, and, I've never ever even crossed my mind that, that I would, anything would come out of my mouth or anything from a racist standpoint. But it's not really so much that I'm not a racist. It's just that what have I been doing as a human being to acknowledge the fact that this is an issue, this is a problem, and how do we change that?
Yeah, that's true.
So, I think it's easy for us individually to kind of take a step back and say, man, I'm going to worry about my family. I'm going to worry about the things that are around me, the things that I control. I got financial issues or I got this or that, and it's easy to lose focus on the big picture. And I think the big picture is finding a solution that everyone can feel 100% free, comfortable, loved, and at peace, and everywhere they are in the United States and all over the world for that matter. I mean, you brought up the Congo a minute ago. I mean, they've been fighting for years and years and years. And, you could definitely probably educate me a lot more on that, but I think it's based on land. Is that a little bit of it or not?
It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
So that's kind of where I stand, And I hope that answered your question in a
Yeah.
roundabout way. But you know, for me, just to kind of sum it up, and for me, in a bottle, if I was to put it in a bottle, man,
Yeah.
I'm all about loving other people and you know, treating others the way that I want to be treated.
Right.
And you know, my wife jokes with me, but I like to invest in the people around me and in my network and the people that are showing me that investment as well. So that love and that energy and that support. And I've always been wired that way. And
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. And I would like to take a stab at your question. And these are conversations that we'd like to have, because as much as, you know, as much as we are Africans in the United States, we are Black men in America. Coming here as teenagers, and these guys could back me up. Most of us, like when we first came to the United States, we had that talk, and that talk was, these are African Americans, you guys are Africans, these guys are this way. And I think that this is a very honest conversation that we should all be having.
Yeah.
But I think that all three of us took a step. We say, you know what? Yeah, we are Africans and these guys are African Americans, but we are young Black men and we experience the same thing. And by the talk, I'm talking about, these are conversations that we were having with our parents, because again, like Philip always says, the media does a great job playing with people's emotions. And I think that the media has done a poor job dividing people. And I'm not talking about every media, but I feel like to a degree, there's that division that has been put into society. Like Black people are supposed to be this way, Africans are this way, white people are this way, Asian people are this way, you know. But I think that the only thing that we could do is to come together and try to coexist. So to answer your question, I think that exposure, exposure is definitely what is gonna make us better. You being able to have this conversation with us, and maybe we can reach more people.
Yeah.
You know, like the audience that we can reach. I feel like that's gonna help a whole lot, because even myself, you know, coming to the United States, I was just having this conversation with my neighbor who's from Iraq. I was telling him that, hey, growing up as a kid, I remember in 2003, I was still back in Zambia, and I remember when the United States went over there, and some of the images that I saw on television about people from Iraq, it was, you know, people bombing things and things. That's what I understood those people were like, you know. Again, exposure, going to a very diverse school, you're having lunch with these people, breakfast with these people, dinner with these people, playing soccer, losing games, winning together. Yeah. Like, oh my God, you're such a cool person. So I had my own biases as well, you know. So to answer your question, I think that exposure, the more we all try to do things together, I think that is definitely going to help.
And that's what led me to that, because, you know, I think about that in the people that, you know, that aren't traveled or haven't had the opportunity to have that experience, or to go other places and you know, understand different cultures, or understand, you know, that side of things. You know, I think that that's part of it, and what they're getting is they're not experiencing it as a person. They're taking what's being told to them on the computer or on TV, or through music or whatever it may, whatever the outlet is.
I would take it farther into our education system.
Oh,
I think
100%.
that's some of the problems, where most of the problems start from, if you ask me, because again, we're just having a conversation, right? Yeah, we don't want
no, this is what we want.
You know,
this is what we want.
exactly
I mean, this is what needs to be, you know, don't, this is raw. This is say what you want to say.
Absolutely. Like I say, you know, we're not here to exploit anyone or to offend anyone, but this is the truth. And a lot of the time is we don't have honest conversation, like my brother is talking about. Like he admitted, you know, and I have the same biases coming here. I was told from the get-go the African American way group to not associate with it, you know, just from the jump, you know, and that played into our parents' mind.
Why was that?
I'll say again, it's the constructed ideal by the media, right? Okay. Creating that separation. So there's a lot there's a lot that we can talk about. This is a subject for another. You know, of course, we all know it. Even us, the people, you know, we all get mistreated in everyday situations, right? Like you touch base on it, like sometimes we just take that step back because it's, you know, to our own base of interest, right? In the sense of like, I have a family, I need to take this step back. So there's no need for me to be getting into stuff like that. So, you know, it's not affecting me much. But we all know that if we all come together as a group and say, hey, enough is enough, we have the power. I think sometimes we underestimate ourselves as people on just based on how much power we have, you know, and I think that's key, understanding that, right? It's not so much about that particular group or that particular group, because that's what creates division, right? And just going back to the topic, I had the same biases he had, right? I was told go from the beginning, like African Americans were a group to be not to be associated with. And I think every foreigner, if I'm not mistaken, I couldn't speak to everybody, but I think I would say this: most foreigners have this perception. Like as soon as they land here, they already know that African Americans are a group not to be associated with, and this is based on things that they receive in the media, things that's being televised into their country, like black men all the time being locked up in jail, and things, you know what I mean, and always getting into riots and confrontation with the police and problems with the government.
And Philip, I was also going to say, maybe to just kind of like give him context, kind of give him your experience as, because when we first arrived in the United States, it wasn't a lot of us at that time too. So our experience, it's like a group of people have a perception of these people this way. You know, Africans are supposed to be this way. And, you know, vice versa. We also think that African Americans are supposed to be this way. Maybe you can kind of like explain to him your experience.
And definitely not. And the only way, I mean, to make this short, and I'll say this, is because you look at us, right? And I hate to say this word, like, because we are not a third world country if you look at the resources that we have in our countries. But it's BS. But that gets played in people's mind. You see what I'm saying? It's terms like that, you know, and people grow up in believing like, wow, Africa or Central America or whatever, they're third world countries. We're not. We just have a problem with the lack of political organization. Again, it's about the unity coming together for the best interest of the people, you know, and that doesn't happen very often around the world. So where I'm going with this, in the sense of like, we having that perception of like not to be associated with African Americans, our country already gone through so much ups and downs and chaos, right? And when we see things on the media of them behaving like that, right, with that message also being sent to us, we're looking at them from afar like, look at these idiots. Like, how can you waste an opportunity of a lifetime in America where you can just be playing with your life and not really taking full advantage of it? But the one thing that we don't know, and they never share with us, is the historical facts, right? In the sense that Black people in this country were arrived from the names, their culture, their language, everything. They had to start from the beginning, like from the zero. And it's incredible how they were able to even create a family in the midst of all the odds that they had to go through. You see what I'm saying? We had no idea about all that. We're just coming up here like, oh yeah, everybody's created equal. American money grows on tree, and these guys are wasting opportunities over a lifetime. But it's not that. There's so many laws, such, you know, institutional racism that is still in play till this day, that it's holding families back for generations and generations, right? And the cycle continue within a community, right? It's things like that we have to talk about, that people are affected by these policies that we have in place till this day, you know? And that's why it's so important to have this conversation as well, and also history, right? And to me, as a Christian, as a believer, one thing that I have a problem with is that most of the time I have a conversation with my fellow believers is they use our religion as a way of, as an escape in some way. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, this is what God told me to. I absolutely agree with you. God did tell each and every one of us to love one another, but He also told us to clothe the poor, to feed their hunger, and to be with them, and to look out with them. And I feel like we always miss that part, you know, when it comes to including our faith, combining with what's going on with the current situation in the world. We always miss the interaction part, right? I mean, the Apostle Paul talks about it so many times in the New Testament, and some of like our reconciliation with God is what eventually will lead us from reconciling with one another, right? And this is a conversation, right? And to me, that's what I say, like, that's what most of the problem is. And I don't have a lot of problem with folks. Like, yes, you can teach, right? Not to hate and not to see color. But at the end of the day, it's like, what exactly are you teaching? Are you just teaching not to see color, or are you truly teaching like the deep roots of the problem? Like, this is how we've gotten here, is because of this.
And that's what I was meaning by educating and understanding. You know, understanding what you know, you touched on so many things, and we could go on forever. But you know, the history books, you know, I mean, that has to change. And I was joking earlier. I wasn't very good at history. I didn't pay a lot of attention. I didn't like reading stuff I wasn't interested in.
Well, it's not.
So for me, it was for me growing up as a kid, I was more wanted to understand more of the present and how things worked and how this and that. Not worry about what happened, in the 1800s or something to that effect.
Yeah.
But for me, as an adult now, you look back on it and you're thinking, I was selling myself very short by not understanding the full, dynamics of history and things like that.
Yeah.
You talked about, and Albert's being quiet over there, so I can't wait to hear
I'm
what he
sure
says.
he's
But
Yeah.
but you mentioned, man, you having an honest conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's at. We sugarcoat so much as a human. We all, say, well, we don't want to say this or we don't want to say that.
Right.
And from that perspective, I think about myself and I think about some of my friends. And that's why I say that if something feels different right now over the past 2 weeks. And maybe it's just me. Maybe it's affecting me differently.
Yeah.
Maybe it's opening up a part of my eyes and my heart that wasn't open before. I don't know. But I can tell you that I see my friends now and I see they're hurt. And I see that they're upset.
Yeah.
And I see that they want that something has to change.
Right.
And for me, we all went through the kind of the pleasures of life and enjoying each other and our families and everything like that.
Yeah.
And that conversation was never had. I was never, nobody looked at me and not that they should have, but having that honest conversation and just saying, putting it out there and saying, man, this is bothering me. This is something that I'm struggling with, or this is something I've struggled with for a long time.
Right.
And I think that's where it starts, you know. And when you start that honest conversation and that open, conversation, then it creates a whole different dialogue.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like for me as a believer, one of my favorite passages in the Bible is when Christ talks about like people are afraid to come to the light because they're afraid that their evil deeds will be brought up to the light. Right? To me, even as an individual, when I read that clearly speaks to me because I'm like, I need to do a better job of being a better person tomorrow because today I clearly wasn't, or I had a shitty day. It happens. I don't know if you're allowed to, to say that, but excuse my French.
Oh yeah, no.
But like, and I think that's also the beauty of it. And I think to me, that's also the beauty of, as a believer, that is the beauty of grace and just being able to understand it because sometimes as Christians, we tend to look at the 10 Commandments as a punishment from God. But me, I look at that as an act of love in a sense of like, He's giving you another opportunity, right? For you to really, really look at yourself and be like, wow, I cannot truly measure myself to His greatness. You see what I'm saying? So that's how that's my perception towards the 10 Commandments, right? And people like to say like the law is not relevant, but it still is in some ways. But it's being able to understand all that. You see what I'm saying? Like, and you can say even with us as Christian, right? We're so like, I can't call out any churches, but like so many churches, all they preach about is the New Testament, right? And that's all they go with, right? But then we forget about like the Old Testament, which is pretty much everything that's foretelling about what the New Testament is going to be about. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So unless if you're believing, if you don't have that concept and understanding, like the Old Testament is me talking about all this, then this is what you see, especially with teenagers, since I work with so many of them, their faith is all over the place, right? It's because they're missing a little bit of that basic, right? It's very important. Right, I read a book by this guy named Sean. He's right here in Lexington, and he's from England. And he wrote a book. It's called The Story of Us. Right, and the most important thing in that book, something that my takeaway was, he emphasized on how important it is to continue to tell the story of God. Right, and he gave the example of the children of Israelites, especially when Moses was delivering them out of Egypt. God clearly told him, Moses, the reason why these fools are misbehaving like this is because I haven't appeared to them like I did to their forefather, which is Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac. You see what I'm saying? Like Moses understood that perspective, which is what allowed him to carry on with the mission. You know what I'm saying? You can talk about the same thing with Christ. The king asked him, are you the true son of God? He said, you say I am. And I think that speaks deep, not only regardless of what your religion is, but I think that says something about identity and understanding your true self and where you come from and what you believe in and what you know. Right? And the Christ wasn't replying that as a smart ass. No, you say I am the Son of God. Nah, he was actually giving them a book to read. You see what I'm saying? And I think we can relate, if we relate the same concept with just the way we go on in each and every day into our daily interaction, right? We truly understanding like, why is this group always angry about this, this, and this? Rather than just saying, oh yeah, such and such, you know, it's things like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I've experienced a lot of, you know, people bumping heads in the sense of like, you hear one, you know, especially I was born in the 90s, right? A lot of my friends will say, oh yeah, dude, I totally feel you. I have, you know, I don't hate anybody, you know, I have nothing against racism, which I truly understand.
Mhm.
But my point is, do you understand why?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Do you even understand why this question exists? You see what I'm saying? It's not so much about you yourself, and like, yes, you have nothing to do with it, but you have to understand that you are a product of the system that excluded so many people for generations and generation and generation, right? And I think that's something that can bring us all to the light, right? Like, I'm not trying to take it to an extreme level. Like, this is a movie that was shown in the White House, The Birth of a Nation, right? Like, this was a movie produced in Hollywood, and this was white actors painted in blackface, and this was shown into the White House, and the characteristic was basically a black man ripping this white woman. What do you think that message was sending to the white society?
Yeah, 100%.
You see what I'm saying? It's things like that, and people buy in from stuff like that, right? And they're like, oh yeah, I don't want to face any 6'3" black men in the middle of the street by myself because he might be a racist. Because they showed that movie at the White House. They're not crazy for showing that movie at the White House. There was a reason why they showed that movie at the White House. It's not false. Therefore, it must be true. Therefore, he's a black man. He's 6'5". He's this and this, and he's dangerous. You see what I'm saying? So it's understanding that concept, right? And I think with African Americans, for my humble opinion, is I feel like they've gone through so much. And this is why I said earlier, I think if we open up, most folks know our struggle and where we come from. That's why I wanted to hear your perspective, right? You see what I'm saying? Because that's how we get there to the table, and then we dine together, right? And then we move on from there, right? I can bring up so many biblical stories because they shaped my life, right? And to close it with one, I don't know if you remember this story when Jesus went, I think it was Zacchaeus' house, right? The tax collector, right? And everybody else around them was like, look at him, and they were judging Christ. They were like, how can you be the son of God talking about like you sitting down with prostitutes and tax collectors? You see what I'm saying? But Christ was able to turn around to them. He's like, yo, I came to this world for the sick. You see what I'm saying? Not for those who, you know what I'm saying? So, and that's why
it doesn't matter who they are, what they do. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. All he's trying to do is bring into the kingdom, right? Which is going back. You know, the word religion itself, like we don't talk about it like that. What is religion? What is the definition of religion? Abiding back. What are we trying to abide back to? You see what I'm saying? We don't ask ourselves this question many times. Yeah. Like the word religion itself is abiding back to our true nature of worshiping, which is what you touched on earlier is, I am who I am because of who you are. You see what I mean?
It sparks a thought in my mind. You know, we are so good and so quick to just check the box and get stuff done. Yeah. And I think religion, you know, everything in our lives, a lot of times, you know, it just is easy. And so you check the box from a religion standpoint, and you say that you're a Christian or you're a follower of God, and you don't really even understand the concept or what it's about or the story behind it. And so, Albert, you're being quiet over there. Let's talk about.
I love this. This is.
I want to change. I want to change the script a little bit, and I want you to talk on this. So you talked about history. You talked about how you talked a lot. You talked a lot about how it's perception and how a lot of the people are saying, well, they showed this at the White House or they did this or not. And we've always, as Americans, we've always looked up to our leaders, our leaders for leadership and guidance. So I think a lot of that, like you said, is put into people's minds from a standpoint of, well, if they did this, well, then this must be okay, or this must be the right thing. And I mean, you can break it down from political party to race to religion, you name it. And we can try to, if you believe in that or you feel that way, you try to justify it any way possible. So talk about how do we change that? How do we change that mindset as leaders? Because, we talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. We talked a lot about how fashion and what you do from a standpoint, Philip, we talked about your page on, it's not about the picture. It's about the message. How do we change that? Because I think, you hear so many different voices and you have so many people so many influencers on social media and everything out there. How do we get the right message out there? How do we change
how do we start to change that and change that curve a little bit?
Yeah. I mean,
Does it make sense?
You already tackled that.
I mean,
We spoke about this earlier.
Yeah.
He
yeah,
knows we did.
actually, it's weird because it was today.
It was meant to be, so let it out and be loud so that people can
Yeah.
Talk loud.
A nation is born story, recognized Epicurean, right? And that's Peter Drucker. You know, and both is called civilization is discontent, right? And if you understand that, just that part right there, like we're born story, man, ready, like think about how Vikings live, all these people back in the old ages, and we die Epicurean. Yellow is Epicureanism, right? And it's like what Philip was saying, me. If you understand the conversation, if every sentence that you open, every time you talk to people, you start with I, it's a selfish thing, right? And being able to understand when to be selfish and selfless is very important, right, in society. So yeah, being selfish is good for you sometimes, and it's also very, very detrimental for you sometimes, right? Knowing that it's not about you, and if you look at things like relationships, and it's once you're married, it's not about you anymore. If you like Zaxby's and she doesn't like you, maybe you might need to go to Canes now,
Yeah.
So being able to compromise is the key. Whether is you have an entity, and I always think about different type of people working for me. How do I deal with that? How do I create a culture from that, right? And so for me, I'm more in like a serious situation where if I don't do it right, it can affect people's viewpoints and how the company goes forward as an entity, right? And so just to think about that part and being able to understand that some of these laws that were passed, they were passed in a way, and they were changed, right? I mean, they were done a while ago when, if you look at things like discrimination probably used to work generation ago for safety net, right? To protect you from predators, right? But, society today, by tomorrow morning, you could be in London, England, right? So there's so much mixture of different society and cultures. The brain, the 10,000 voices of your own ancestors and generations of all times do not work in our society anymore. So the problem is, how do you adapt, right?
Yeah.
And it start off at home, and he was a really good guy. Like, I mean, he brought it up early. It's like, in order for you to do anything out at work or anything else, I want to know how you live at home, right? How do you treat your wife? How do you treat your own kids and all that stuff before you work for my company, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you go home and tell your kids to not hang around with certain type of people, and then you come out in public and you smile, it's like, and we call it taboo conversation, like we don't talk politics, religious, or race, right? And it's like a serious situation. There's been a lot of things on religious that's been changed. I mean, I remember when I came to America, people used to pray in school. Now they don't pray, right? And so, and being able to say, okay, we have this type of people doing this, with this type of people doing this, how do we bring them all together?
Right.
So laws have just been passed as like a bias situation, right? So now people, and it's hurting one person, one culture, and it's gaining the other culture. That's the problem, right? So it's not like everybody's low. It's like there is a misbalance. And in society, when there's a misbalance, there's no society. Because what is society? Society is you and I coming together and saying, hey, we're gonna have this moral, we're gonna have this more norms and these principles, and you and I both can agree on this principle. I won't kill you, okay, if you don't attack my family, and then you're gonna do the same thing, and then all that. That's what society is. It's a contract between you and I.
Yeah.
So if you don't abide by that contract, then we have a misbalance in society. Right? And if you look at a lot of famous economics books that they talk about, like the invisible hands and all that stuff, and moving on back to the 13th Amendment, where it says everybody's free unless you commit a crime, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, if I commit a crime, then I'm not free anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think education is key, knowing the truth. Not reading things with the words in mind. Hey, I bought this book, I read this book, therefore I believe in this book. It's, hey, I bought this book, I like it. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? And so when we read something, we see somebody in uniform, we completely believe and say, hey, that guy is the truth. That guy is an honest guy, right? And because he's wearing a certain uniform, or he's wearing he's a doctor, or this, I mean, but it's not true, you know. Just because of a doctor doesn't mean I don't know other stuff, right? Because it's things I know that I don't know, and it's things I don't know that I don't know, and it's things I know that I know, right? So, and I feel the whole moral, the conclusion to that, what can I do tomorrow to start changing this? I think taking a step back and saying, what is going on? If I don't understand what is going on the other side, being able to argue, okay, what is the person that disagree with me? What are they thinking? And then what am I thinking? And actually do that research and being able to take up that ego in between, right? And say, okay, so you think like this, you think like this. How can we come together and coexist in such a very fast world? And companies, if you don't do that, you disappear, right? And so you sit there and you say, all right, so I'm really good at this. How can I take that and make it bigger than just me and my product or my entity above and beyond, right? What am I doing for my own community? What am I doing as a person in my own house, in our my friends, right? What am I telling my kids, right? And we talked about it today, and then he was like, "Do you think?" He asked me questions. Do you think that would ever be possible? And I said, I know, I think so. Yes, I know so, because you can see the generation today, the Gen X, and they are born differently because they have a different tool that you did not have, that we did not have, right? They know that, you know what, I'm allowed to listen to hip hop. I can wear whatever I want. I know what they're saying. You know what, people in England, I know what they're doing right now, like, and all that. So you will never do that. Our parents will never do that. Yeah. So it's like very, very quick, right? And that information at their own disposal, they say, that's what we have today. Yeah. Like they're coming out and saying, you know what? Whatever you guys believed, enough is enough. Because who's in these higher offices and all that stuff? People who don't want to retire, right? They have had this own way of thinking, but the world is too fast now, you know. It's time to change that way of thinking.
Absolutely.
And it's for us to come out and start doing in those offices.
So you think, you see a change definitely coming with younger leaders and people who have a completely changed mindset.
Yes.
And all of that. I completely 100% agree with that.
But I do still think we can take it somewhere. We still have an opportunity, and to bring that change, not in the sense of like it's something that needs to happen very distant.
Yes.
Well, I mean, we are in a moment of crisis right now, so we need something to be done at this particular moment. But yeah, of course, for the future world, I do believe the young people have a different mind, just for the same reason you just talked about. Yeah. Today, you have a 7-year-old, he is living in Lexington, to have something in common with a 7-year-old that lives in India.
Yeah.
And we can see a little bit of that results based on what's going on right now with the protesting and how people are quick to unite and how they are showing up places,
So that's my question, Philip.
Yeah.
How do we keep that going? Because, younger generation right now, it just seems to be a generation that is quick to forget or quick to move on to the next exciting thing.
Yeah.
How do we keep that going? How do we keep pushing that, and what does that look like?
For me, if you ask me, since I really work with with young people, and so many times in situations like this, the young folks can be the scapegoat too, in a sense of like kind of like what I just said, right? It's like you leave it up to the younger generation, they will kind of fix it, right? But if you ask me, this is my honest, humble opinion. I think it just has to come from the other side, in a sense of like those who are in power and those who have the privilege to make the changes. They have to be the one to man enough and to recognize the humanity and to listen to the people's voice and really ask like what are truly these people are here protesting for and what are they asking. Because and the reason why, like I said, we're just having a conversation here, not to exclude anybody. And the reason why I wanted you to start with your statement is because I wanted to hear your perspective. Why you see what I'm saying? And I say this is because Black folks have been on the front line for years and years and years and years. It had took in a horrific video for and pretty much to go viral for everyone to come to an understanding. Like, wow, Colin Kaepernick was actually protesting about something. You see what I'm saying?
So let's touch on that just really quick. So you're on a roll. I don't want to interrupt, but now that's the thing.
Yeah.
So we talk. I'm taking it back here.
Yeah.
We talked about having an honest conversation.
Yeah.
So I turned on the TV this morning, and the first thing I see is that the NFL is coming out and saying that they were wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why does it take something like this? Why does it take a murder, like you said, that goes viral? Why does it take something like this for people to take a step back and say, I might not be right on this situation? Instead, whether you like Colin Kaepernick as a football player or whatever, they kicked him out of his entire life. They changed his entire life.
For sure.
He changed his entire life and other people's lives.
Yeah.
It even bigger than being a football player.
Yeah. I mean,
I think about Muhammad Ali.
That's what
with what he stood for, and I mean. And,
he lost his prime years.
Yeah,
from 24 to 29
because he was
prime years.
Because he was dedicated to the message. Yeah. And so for me, just looking at this, and you see the NFL, and they're like, "Well, we were wrong. We're sorry. We apologize." And I know from a religious standpoint and Christianity standpoint, I mean, forgiving is important, learning is important,
right,
and understanding when you're wrong. But why does it take something like this to get to that point?
It's
my question.
So I coach, right? I coach high school soccer, right? I coach at all levels, right? And for me, I think one of the things that I see one of the things that I thrive on, it's recognizing the mistakes that the other coaches are making, which are fundamental mistakes in the sense of what? You can have a great kid on your team, right? And you can see that from a practice level or whatever. You can be like, oh yeah, this guy's gonna score me a lot of goals, right? And the mistake that most coaches do is they don't take time to evaluate their players and their abilities, right? So if you're just a fast kid and you can do the thing, most coaches go like, okay, I'm going to put you as a striker now. Mm-hmm. But what that does sometimes to a kid is that might not be his natural position. I understand we all have to learn to adapt into situations, but especially from a competition standpoint, like if that kid is not comfortable where you put him, and if the other team also recognizes that, then your team is in trouble. Because what's going to happen is that kid is going to be confused once they're going to be throwing him different looks or things just going to be happening to him. And what's going to happen is at that moment, that kid is going to be looking at the bench like, yo, coach, I don't know what to do. You see what I'm saying? Like, you've put me here and like, come on. Like, and the coach is yelling back at the kid like, you got this abilities. Like, you're fast enough. Like, I don't understand what you're doing today. Like, you should quit. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And the kid end up quitting the sports because the coach truly did not take time to understand the quality and the ability of the players. Just because he's good, just because he's fast, it doesn't mean that he can be a goalkeeper or a striker for you. You have to know what works best for your team. You see what I'm saying, for the best interest of the team. And it's the same thing I see in life most of the time, is we expect our children to go out there and not see color, but we don't give them the necessary tool to go and conquer those, you know what I mean, those behavior or those, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like the circumstances or whatever whatever it is that they'll be facing on later on in life. You see what I'm saying? So what you end up having is you just have a group of people that are just constantly going through the motion, right? And this is why I said earlier, I even have friends, right? And we talk about this stuff all the time, just openly, right? They tell me all the time, Phil, like, I've been loving you since you got to this country. I said, my brother, I have nothing against you. That is, I get that. I love you back, but I just want you to understand the reason why is you don't feel some of these things is because you have been put into an advantage position for birth. Since birth. You see what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. And that has been able to give you some of the tools that can get you certain places quicker compared to me. I may have to go through roadblocks, but for you, for the most part, and I do understand that this is what most folks get into, is because on the other side, you feel like folks are they feel like you're undermining their work ethic, right? And I hear all the time from my friends, it's like, my parents have worked hard enough their whole life. 100%. But you've had a group of people here. You see what I'm saying? It's like, I'm looking for an analogy here, but like, let's say we both showed up, right, on the track, right? You ran track, right? And you've got the cleats, right? And I don't. I show up bare feet. I mean, who's more likely? You see what I'm saying? So, you see what I'm saying? So it's simple things like that. It's being able to recognize, the reason why I finished is because I had the tools that can get me there, and I had people and the resources that can get me there. Compared to other folks, they don't even know where that resource where it's coming from. They don't even know where to go. You see what I'm saying? So can you just imagine on top of that, and on top of that, you're struggling with identity issues, not knowing where you belong. Because your whole life, I always say this, if people want to understand what's going on through Black people's mind, from my humble opinion, is you need to be asking yourself, like, why were these people fighting for civil rights if they were classified as citizens in the first place?
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
I mean,
You know what I mean? If you're fighting for civil rights, that means you have perceived yourself as not a citizen.
Right.
Therefore, you're fighting for your citizenship rights. You see what I'm saying?
right, man.
So
it's crazy.
that's my perspective.
If a tree falls down, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it, who cares, right?
Yeah.
A lot of us, like I said, that
That's
tree, the
something like that.
definition is just that a lot of trees has fallen and the forest is almost over, and now people are realizing, oh my gosh, yeah, I hear a tree, and that's what it took, right? It took a lot of people to protest. That's the tree falling, right? And everybody's like recognizing that noise, right? When if there was no cameras or all that stuff and things that have happened, and if you catch me stealing from you, it's maybe the first time that you caught me stealing. It's not the first time I've stolen from you, right? So it's those things where we have those tools now that you can't hide anymore, right? And a lot of people are being caught red-handed. So the way the system is created in America is like when you're out there, yeah, you gotta reside, you gotta like pay for it, because now everybody knows that. But if no one knows about it, hey, it's okay, like just it never happened, right? So now, and people see that, they're like, man, like this happened, this kid happened, this thing happened, and even people of not just like our own race, but it's Hispanic, it's Asian, based on what the process, there were Asian people, there were people from all over the place. And it's like he told me, it's not a race issue, it's a racism issue. And I love that because there's been that, hey, you know what, you are second class, your generation is always going to be second class. And I feel like some of those generations, they are old that missed those mistakes of I'll be my own business perspective and economic wise, I would like to say generational wealth, right? And there's delayed and of our fairness of being true like human being, like you said. And on top of that, he's telling his son, hey, be careful out there when you go outside and play, because remember you're my kid, and then you're telling your son, hey, son, let me tell you this, you can go out there, you can become a great basketball player, you can conquer whatever you want to conquer in the world. So those kids go out and they're playing, his kid has a different mindset. Like, I gotta be careful because my dad said I'm Black.
And so let me just give you my thinking
Yes.
as you say that.
Yes.
So I send my son out to play.
Yes.
And I don't not one time do I look at him or think about a policeman bothering him or somebody harassing him from that standpoint.
Yes.
I'm worried about child predators. I'm worried about
Yes.
people picking him up and trying and taking him, and my daughter as well.
Right.
And my daughter's 14 and my son's 13.
Right.
So those are the things that I, because I don't know the other side of that.
Right.
But I can't even imagine that feeling, and I can't imagine what that conversation sounds like.
Right.
I can't imagine what your what your son feels like, or if your parents were having that conversation with you. I can't understand how you digested that as a child.
Right.
And so for me, when I take a step back, I think, I see why people are angry. I see why people feel this way, because not only is it happening,
Right.
but it's that's how they've had to you've had to live that that your entire life. You were taught, your parents were explained it to you and talked to you, had that conversation with you. I think about growing up as a kid, and it was different obviously in the 80s and 90s. You just didn't worry about much. But I grew up in a small town, and I still tell the stories to my kids about being able to go from my house in town there and ride my bike all the way to the school, which is on the other side of town. And I stopped at every store. I knew everybody in the community. I'd throw my bike down, talk about having respect for what you own and things like that. I remember throwing my bike down at night and not thinking twice about it.
Right.
Although it did get stolen 3 times.
Yeah.
but you know, my wife jokes with me and tells me that I didn't deserve it anyways. If I wasn't gonna take better care of it, somebody else needed it.
Yeah.
But you know, I just
Yeah.
think about that as a kid, and I think about how, you know, how made my kids have it right now from a standpoint of, like you said, sending them outside and to do something or whatever. And it's more about, you know, encouragement and not even having a conversation to that they could walk out and be like, okay, I shouldn't go here, I shouldn't walk there, I shouldn't look, you know, go to this area or whatever. And that's the reality of this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality of this. And for me, you know, growing up the way that I did and the way I was raised by my parents and knowing what I have in me and in my heart, you know, that's what, you know, I've never had to deal with that, the reality of that. Yeah. But, you know, the people that I care about and love and that I surround myself with, they have and they do every day. So, so I, you know, I think what you all have talked about and said, when we've gone down so many different avenues, but man, I mean, it's just, you know, we could sit here and talk for hours.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And maybe we do a part 2 to this for sure.
We
because-
can, man.
Because I want to sit down with you all and I want to
Yeah.
see the growth component from a business standpoint.
Yeah.
But I also want to see where we're at.
Yeah.
You know, months or a year from now, and see how we've changed it and what's happened and what, you know, are the voices still being heard? Are people still listening?
Right.
I think that's the key in all of this.
Love it.
So, one of the things I told you guys about early on, I do a PSA. So I want a PSA from all 3 of you. So you're not getting, Arsene, you're not getting off.
I got it.
Let's,
He's going first, by the way.
let's do this. Who wants to go first?
Philip is definitely
Send
gonna
them,
go
send
first.
them.
See,
Phil-
he
Phil-
does more public speaking. You get what I'm saying? So
Look at this guy.
Do you have a podcast?
This is like throwing at me. I do a podcast, but it's for soccer. You know?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So just to touch on you too, I coach
Yeah.
youth football.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5th and 6th grade football.
Yes.
And I have for 3 years. And what you were saying just makes so much sense because I think we've lost maybe 3 games in the past 3 or 4 years. But, you know, I just understand, and you said this, I mean, it just all ties back together. You said this about your clients and your customers that come in.
Yeah.
Understanding what makes them up and how they want to feel and what they want to look like. It's the same way with children. And you know, it's so funny. Parents have a different perspective and a different mindset. They'll say, well, why isn't my son quarterback? And I say, well, he's 300 pounds and in the 5th grade. And, you know, he's, I mean, not that he won't be at one point, but we have to work together as a team.
Yeah.
And we have to, you know, you have to trust me and believe that I'm putting your son in the best position for us to have success and to learn and to grow.
Yes.
And so once you get everybody on board with that,
Yes.
it's the outcome is amazing. So, so I can relate to what you were saying about coaching with youth and understanding kind of the dynamics of the kids that you're coaching.
Absolutely.
So, well, let's go into the PSA.
Yeah.
Well, Philip, what would your PSA be to the people out there?
Man, mine will be just based on what's going on right now, and I'm so happy to see a tremendous amount of support from especially the white people in our community coming out and really sharing their voices. But I would say our fight doesn't stop there. I would say this is a great opportunity for us to turn our voice into practical solution. You know, so we all know the Kentucky election is coming up June 23rd. So if you haven't registered to vote, please, that's my one message to you out there.
Yeah.
If you feel some type of way about whatever is going on, again, regardless of your political party, like I say, this has nothing to do with politics at this point because we are fighting for human rights, right? There's a reason why you see the world is also upset, right? From the incidents that happened in Minnesota, right? And like I said, despite all the madness, we're thankful for the spirit that the humans have shown throughout our world. And like I say, that is great. It is a great support. And as a Black man, I know that my folks and my ancestors have been in the front line and advocating for generation and generation, but there was no action to follow up with that. And I think this is a great opportunity for us, the way we've come out and show support to the family of Mr. George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, yes, you know, just right here close home, you know, and it's great that we realize that the fight goes beyond just, you know, protesting in the streets, and we have an opportunity to, like I said, to turn our voices into practical solution. And in my opinion, I think that's the way that we'll begin to make change. So that's my call it?
PSA.
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 There
You
you
know,
go,
that's my
Philip.
PSA of the week.
Albert,
June 23rd. Go vote.
Oh, you want me to go? You want to
No,
get skipped over?
Albert's still thinking. He's still thinking.
He's thinking. What are you thinking? Can I get a
Honestly,
discount?
as far as my PSA, I guess I'll go back to a little bit of what Philip touched on. For me, I think that first thing first, I'm just really happy to see how a lot of people have came out to, just support. We were downtown a few days ago.
Yeah.
We had different races out there, and one thing that I can honestly say about what's going on right now is I've seen a lot of going back to trends, right? Like it becomes a trend where people protest and then it hits June 20th and then everything dies down. Like Philip said, please people go out there and vote. And then as black men in the community, I think that we also need to do our share. If Philip is already helping a lot of young kids, and I'm really proud of him. And one thing that we have to do is to continue helping the younger kids in the community. Philip can help out 4 kids. If I can help out 3 kids, and Albert helps out 3 kids, because we can help every single person.
Mm-hmm.
But if we just a little bit that we can do, is going to make a huge difference in the community, because the protesting is going to keep going. But at one point, I think that that action piece is very important. And then obviously we talked a lot about fashion in this, and one thing I can only say is fashion has been another way that has been another piece that has brought us all together.
All of us today.
Right? And I think that just expressing yourself through fashion is going to be a great way to kind of like learn about one another. Albert just had 3 officers that came in here, detectives that came in here. That's his moment to kind of like spread that awareness to them. Fashion and music, African music here lately. Like I'll drive down in my car and I'm hearing African music, right? Or on the radio. I'm like, oh wow, we have African songs on the radio. Or I'll see another person, either like a white person or an African American wearing African clothes.
Yeah.
I feel like, that's something that's bringing us all together.
Mm-hmm.
So again, let's all continue to stay positive, and we become our thoughts. And the more we think that this is possible for all of us to unite, we can definitely make it possible.
I love that. And something you said, you're right. I mean, if you affect 3 people and talk to 3 people, then the idea and the hope is that those 3 people will talk to 3 people, and then it just keeps spreading and spreading. And I think that's the key.
Absolutely.
And you just kind of summed it all up. So Albert, you got a big hill to climb here. But yeah. So but you're right. I mean, the music and the fashion and all of that, and the younger, a lot of younger generation and just people in general are understanding that and seeing that and bringing that together, and that's bringing a common bond, I think, between people. And I love to see that. So Albert, what do you got for us?
Man, not much. I mean, you did sums it up, man. And I love it, man. And I think, and he tells me this funny story. He's like whenever you're sitting on the couch, you're watching TV, and all your friends are watching everybody who's successful on TV, and then you're like, man, I want to do that. And then you get off the couch, and then you're doing that too. And then, but you also sometimes want to quit, go back on the couch and just relax for a little bit, because you forget how hard it is. And he tells me, he's like, man, you're off the couch, man. You can't come back on the couch anymore. And that's how he always tells me.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's just, I think about me, I call it a tombstone test, when I'm no longer here. What have I done? And people are like, I remember what I said, I remember how I made them feel. And I always think about it every time, and I'm motivated by, I don't know, these can really be sad for people, but motivated by death, right? Like that's my motivation. Like every day, as long as I'm breathing, is a blessing. It's meant I can change someone's life when I'm standing in line at Kroger. You can do something so small as, you know what, hey, don't worry, man, I'll pay for that for you, right? The little that I have, I'm gonna share with you, right? Or to, hey, I'm at the store, you know, this guy, you know, he wants to look really, really good, and then he has a situation maybe, and he always feels like, you know, insecure, and you bring that in them, like you change that, right? And they go home and never look back again. You know what, I'm gonna shut down, I'm gonna go out there and join this guy and be in front of the protest, and, you know, and show my way of giving back, not just financial, but time. I think one of the most expensive things to give back in society to anyone is time, because you can never get back. So for everyone out there, whatever you can do, whether you want to know a little bit more about Black community, how they function, whether you think you can invest in the Black community in one way or the other, and to understand this different culture and Black people as well, you know, being able to recognize your neighbor, you know, and say, hey, you know what, this person's doing this. What can I do to keep that faith going, to keep that fire going, you know? Galvism, you know, Marcus Garvey, you know, he was one of the greatest guys that ever did that, you know? And so educate yourself to really understand what's going on. And I think don't let school get in the way of your education, you know? And,
Hey, you just described, the one word you just described is love. I mean, what you just described is that's what it's about. I mean, loving other people, but, you know, helping other people and influencing other people from that standpoint. And, you know, I think that's why you all, you know, that having that mindset of fearing death or whatever that looks like, you know, having that mindset from that standpoint and living every day like it is your last, and you want to change people's lives, and you want to live it the best way that you can. I mean, it is. Well, it is, and I think that feeds obviously you, but the passion and the love is where that's coming from. I could see it in the way you were saying it. So, anything else you guys want to say before we close up?
No, this has been great. You know,
listen, I love it.
This was wonderful, man, and I think that it's we need this, man. You being able to be in this space and having these conversations with us, you expose us to a different audience, you know, and you just being in this space, we've learned from the experiences that you shared as well, you know. We all have so much in common, you know, and I think that it's, again, like you said, the time that you put out there, like, hey, let me try to learn about these guys. You know, I feel like that is what makes us grow as humans.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the idea behind this. You know, this podcast started out as something fun, but I quickly found that I was getting a great response from people, and I thought, you know, I'm going to use this to influence others and to educate others in every way that I possibly can, not just from, you know, vintage clothing and fashion, but every way possible.
Absolutely.
You know, I never dreamed when I reached out to Philip that he would say, "Yeah, let's do it."
Come on now.
And I love you for that. I love you for that.
Hey, if Philip didn't tell you, we have a whole extended family, man. You could have 8 people.
Let's do it. That's what I was going to say. I mean, that's what I want to do. This isn't like a one-time thing. You know, this podcast, I've got a lot of people. I'm recording. I release one a week because I think that is fair to whoever's giving me their time. I'm not going to upload 3 or 4 in a week to drown out another person's, you know, message or voice or whatever they want. So the idea is to release one every Tuesday. But man, people are just, you know, reaching out left and right, wanting to be a part of it, and I love that. But there will be a time where I want to come back and revisit all of this and talk about the business and how it's grown, and talk about, you know, where we are, you know, as a country, and what that looks like, and what's changed. So I definitely want to do that. But thank you all so much, man. I appreciate it.
Man. I appreciate these guys joining the set too.
No, it was great.
Great mind.
I came out of nowhere.
And Arsene, he would have been biting his tongue if he sat over there. He would just be like, he's like, I gotta get in.
I gotta say something.
And then he would try to have the conversation with us.
You know, sometimes I think I'm on the shy side. You know, I'm just like, yeah, maybe.
He's the introvert.
Yeah. I talk to them.
And then I noticed that.
Yeah.
I noticed that when you all three walked in, I
Yeah.
noticed that he was the shy one.
Yeah.
You went
I'm
all the way
on
back
the
there.
back seat. You know, I let them do the
I
talking.
could see that. That's funny because I mean, part of what I've done, I've been in consulting and sales since I left college.
Oh wow.
Well, I got my real estate license at 18, so I've
Wow.
been in that format and that mindset. But
You understand personality.
yeah, personalities. I mean, I can walk into an office or I can walk into a meeting with a doctor or a CEO or somebody like that, and I can say this is going to not go good or it's going to go good.
Right.
I can always tell by their body language.
Right.
So, as you know, I'm an extrovert, and so I sometimes have to pull it back in and say, you know, my wife always says, "You are so loud. Why do you talk so loud?" And I'm like, she's like, "Why are you yelling?" And I'm not yelling. I'm not. This is my voice. This is my passion.
Yeah.
So I hope you enjoyed episode number 11. I mean, those guys are amazing. You know, I want to say thank you to them for doing the podcast. And, you know, we continued to strengthen our friendship by just kind of having an open, honest discussion. And I think that's what this is about, you know, talking through things with other people and hearing other people's voice, but at the same time understanding and being open to learning and teaching and opening your heart to love other people. That's what this is about. So I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did conducting the podcast and the interview. But again, I want to say thank you to my audience. You know, I hope you all are enjoying these interviews. They're going to get more in depth, and we're going to start talking about some different topics outside of vintage, the vintage community. And I hope you guys will enjoy it. So I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody is staying happy and healthy. And I love you all.